I haven't heard anything about Dragon Age recently, but it seems we are in luck because there is an article about that franchise. And it goes something like this. Former Dragon Age lead writer says BioWare's fantasy series is unlikely ever to return under EA. And I think he is probably right about one thing, and more speculative about another. The strongest part of what he says is his own assessment of EA's relationship with Dragon Age. As you well know, BioWare has spent nearly 2 decades having to justify the series internally. Dragon Age has never been a franchise that consistently sells like FIFA or Battlefield or even Mass Effect. Even EA reportedly viewed each installment cautiously, despite several of them outperforming expectations. However, after Dragon Age the Veilguard failed to meet EA's internal goals, it's understandable that the publisher shifted BioWare's focus entirely to Mass Effect. Not to mention the amount of diarrhea that Dragon Age the Veilguard produced. I don't think you can clean it ever, even if you hired all the toilet cleaners in the world. That game just stinks to high heaven like there's no tomorrow, and if I may be bold to say, it basically killed the whole Dragon Age franchise altogether. Also, I talked in one of my videos about Dragon Age franchise, and if you look at it, it was kinda declining ever since we saw Dragon Age 2 releasing. Remember, the original Dragon Age succeeded because it combined several elements: a grounded, morally grey world, tactical party-based RPG gameplay, meaningful player choices, strong companions with believable flaws, and mature tone that felt earned rather than edgy. And then, if you notice what happened in Dragon Age 2, Inquisition, and obviously the Veilguard, the franchise, or at least what Dragon Age Origins was in the beginning, slowly got watered down to a point where I don't even recognize it anymore. So Gaider's comments about wanting to go back to the basics resonates because Dragon Age used to be willing to let players make uncomfortable decisions without immediately telling them which answer was morally correct. Characters often disagreed with you in a believable ways because they had their own values, not because the writers wanted to deliver a message. Also, I would like to point out that I think every single installment after Dragon Age Origins had issues, but more importantly, it seems that the developers couldn't find the right formula after they were done with Origins. Or maybe they were trying to experiment and see if that's going to land somewhere, but apparently it didn't. For example, Dragon Age 2 launched with recycled environments and was heavily criticized because of that. Not to mention, many features that Dragon Age Origins had, Dragon Age 2 simply deleted. Then you have issues with Dragon Age Inquisition. Yes, it won Game of the Year award, but let's be honest, that's completely pointless. Nobody cares about that other than the publisher in order to slap that sticker on the box so it sells better. But plenty of people disliked the MMO style open world design. And let me tell you, that was a freaking pain. Kill 10 of this, collect 15 of that. Unbelievable. So you could say after Origins the series has never been perfect. And as for whether Dragon Age comes back or not, I wouldn't say it's dead forever because EA owns the IP. Publishers rarely abandon recognizable franchises permanently. If Mass Effect succeeds, and that's a big if, and then BioWare stabilizes, or another EA studio pitches a compelling reboot, Dragon Age could absolutely return. But I think that won't probably happen anytime soon. My bigger question here is who would make it? Because many of the people who defined Dragon Age, including Gaider and several other veteran writers and designers, have left BioWare. The new Dragon Age would almost certainly be made by a different generation of developers. Obviously, that doesn't automatically mean it would be bad, but it does mean it wouldn't simply be Origins 2. So the question is, can Dragon Age survive without people who made Dragon Age in the first place? And that's a broader question about modern game development. As you know, studios change, key talent moves on, and eventually only the name remains. So whether an IP can retain its identity after most of its original creators have left, well, that's something that the industry keeps grappling with. Take a look at Blizzard, Bethesda, and Obsidian. They all made sequels to already established IPs, and if you ask me, they haven't done a pretty good job, to be honest. In other words, they managed to alienate the core fanbase, which is the people who actually promoted your game in the first place, by adding all kinds of nonsense just to please whatever they wanted to please or whoever they wanted to please. And that's problem with stuff today, because you need to focus on those core people who are the OG fans, but that doesn't mean you cannot introduce new ideas and new mechanics. You just gotta be wise enough to keep the majority of it, while slowly but surely changing bits and pieces of your game, and then see the feedback if the people like it or they don't like it. Because if you change stuff to a point where you don't recognize the original game or vision anymore, first, you're gonna alienate people who originally supported, and second, you're not going to make that type of a numbers when it comes to selling the games, because word of mouth from the original fans is always going to win no matter what. So yeah, you could say Dragon Age is in a very bad spot, and you would need to have an exceptional writer in order to kickstart the whole thing, but also having a lead who understands what the original Dragon Age is all about. And then, only then, will there be a chance for this franchise to be revitalized yet again. Because if you're going to experiment again, well, you might as well just bury it and forget about it, and that's about it. No more Dragon Age. Was nice knowing you. And that's basically my take on this news. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And that's it from me, until the next one.